Welcome to the latest Pinnacle Forum podcast on stewarding the influence that God has given you. This is a series of conversations with leaders who happen to be Christians. Many are fellow partners and are also currently involved in one of our forums. As leaders in our fields, we gain influence. We may think that our influence came because of our intellect, our looks, our luck, our personality, and it's for our own use. The reality is that God grants this for us to use in the advancement of His kingdom. These are the stories of people who are learning how to use that God-given influence in service to others and ultimately to God. We trust these will encourage you as you steward your own God-given influence. Now on to our discussion.
My guest today is Michelle Warren. Michelle is a salesperson, and she has excelled in that. You'll hear a little bit about that. Welcome, Michelle. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you came from, your home life, that kind of thing. And then go on through your education and start your career.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I was born and raised in Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland. My dad was Air Force and then worked at DOD. My mom worked at DOD. And I'm a Maryland girl. I don't live there now, but I'm a Maryland girl. I went to school there, got my master's degree in Maryland, got my undergraduate in Maryland. And I have wonderful parents that I now live 5 houses down from as they've gotten older. And I have 3 older brothers.
Hey, how did those older brothers affect you growing up?
You know, everyone expects that they were really protective, and they weren't. They just always gave me a really hard time. I guess that was their way of being protective. So, you know, I always got picked on by them. I was the only girl, the youngest one, you know, so they played the sports. I did the majorettes and ballet. So I was the girl for my mom. And we have a great relationship, always have, but, you know, there's always a lot of teasing going on.
Right. Little sister.
Yep.
I see that among my 10 grandkids. I've got 3 grandsons and 7 granddaughters as of about 10 days ago. And there's one little 6-year-old that sticks out among the girls because the other 2 boys are 14 and 13. And so he's kind of a peer of the girls, but he's one of the guys. So he's kind of straddling both worlds. It's interesting to watch. Well, tell us about how you got started in your sales career. You got your master's degree?
Yeah, so it's actually a funny story because when I went for my undergraduate, we had to take a sales class. And in that class, they start the class and they were like, who here is just never, ever going to be in sales? And I raised my hand. And then most people did. And at the end of the class, they asked the question again. And I raised my hand again. Like I'm not selling. Like that is not, I don't know what I want to do, but I am not going to sell. And a couple years later, when I was fully entrenched in sales and I went back for career day to talk, all my professors were like, we knew you were going to sell. We just didn't know how to tell you were going to sell. Like you have the personality for it. So we are not shocked. So, yeah, it was very interesting. I didn't see that in myself. I think I got caught up in the, you know, and still today, people, you say you're in sales and people think of the used car salesman and, you know, it doesn't have a great connotation, but I've built a career on really just relationship selling and networking. I love people. I love getting to know people and I love building relationships. And so it just comes really natural to me.
So what all have you sold? Because I think a salesman can sell, just a good salesman can sell just about anything. Just give me the product. And if I believe in it, I'll sell it. If I don't believe in it, we're sunk. But if I believe in the product, so what have you sold in your career?
I sold jewelry at a jewelry store, retail. And then I went to work for IBM and I sold upgrades to mainframe computer systems doing inside sales. Then I sold advertising. And that's really where I thought I wanted to be. Like I wanted to be Angela Bowers from Who's the Boss. And so that was where I thought I was going to be. And eventually that didn't work out. And I ended up selling commercial office furniture. I always say I got tricked into it. They sold me on the, you know, you get to design the workplace and help the customers create this great environment. And I did business development. So I've made a career though in commercial office furniture. I've been in commercial office furniture for 27 years now.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you've been through a number of firms that you've been working for in sales. Is that, talk about that?
Yeah. So I started off in the dealer distribution side and doing, as I said, business development. And then I just kept getting recruited. So if you were to look at my resume, it's like every 2 years, someone would hire me. Like they would recruit me and I would think, wow, this is a great opportunity. I was telling someone earlier today, actually, that I mentor, like I didn't have a game plan. It wasn't like I wanted to ever run a company. I didn't want to be a VP. I was just selling, right? And I didn't know where that was going to take me. And it has created a great career. I kept getting hired for, higher and higher positions, and then eventually landed with a manufacturer in our industry that was pioneering. And so I got to pioneer them and got promoted up, broke through the glass ceiling. It was all men. Still to this day, I'm the only female that's ever been a senior VP at that company, and was living in the boys club. Then I actually demoted myself. I got as high as, I didn't even plan on being a senior VP of sales. And I just got to a point where I just hated it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to step down. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be in the midst of the boys club. I'm going to go stay with the company, move myself to Texas. And I did that and ended up going to work for a woman-owned small business, and then built the rest of my career with woman-owned small businesses and helping small businesses grow.
So did the boys affect you, or did you affect the boys? I'm thinking about influence here. When did you become a believer, Michelle?
I became a believer in 1996. So I was a believer right around the same time that I started in commercial office furniture, kind of interestingly enough. I definitely was not as strong a believer and as willing to talk about it as much as I am now. But I think, that grows with your intimacy with God. And so I think there was probably more influence. I hope that there was more of me influencing them, right? Being the only woman at the table and the only woman in the room, and most of them reporting to me. Oh, so, there was a lot of, no, you can't say that. No, you don't talk like that. This is a business meeting. No, I don't want to hear that story. That's a story for another time, not when I'm here. There was a lot of that. But they were all great guys. They were just, the furniture. I think I say this often, and then I think, well, so many industries could say this. The furniture industry is very male dominated. I can't think of a lot of industries that aren't, honestly, but it truly is. Even to this day, like we go to meetings and I'll get asked to be on a panel, and I'll look around and I'll be like, how did I get asked for this panel? And I'll look around the room and I'll be like, oh, I'm the token woman here. So I take advantage of it, right, as often as I can. But, I'm also a proponent for, helping women step up in this industry and grow in this industry and have a voice. So it's been interesting.
Having been on a board with all men and you, and recognizing there's things that you can say and things that you can't say, does that help you understand why we have men's forums and women's forums and no mixed forums?
Yeah, well, I've always just been of the belief, so I lead a community group for my church, and some of the community groups are mixed, and all of them honestly are mixed. I'm the only one that was like, you know what, I'll do it, but I want it to be all women. And I just felt passionately, not necessarily about things you can't say, but there's things you don't want to say. Like women relate to women, and we're going to open up more with a group of women than we are if there's even a single man in the room. Right? We're going to hesitate maybe about sharing something, or the way we share it, we're going to filter it. And so I've always just been a proponent of that, especially if you want to go deep. I think it's hard to go deep in that situation. In a confidential group of peers where you value the confidentiality and the fact that you can say anything because these are peers that love me and care about me and are praying for me, it seems like there is a level of intimacy that can't be experienced unless you're with all men or with all women. I agree. Yeah. So you finally quit being VP. You say, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of this. And you set up your own shop. I did. Tell us about that. You've been doing your own thing now for almost 3 years. 2.5, yeah. It's really such a God story. And I love it because I talk about it all the time that way now, whereas before it used to be my career and God was part of it. Now this is God's story. I'm just saying yes. And, but he, right before COVID, I wasn't really, happy with where my corporate job was going. It was just getting more management, less sales, less people. I was just managing a team, and there was a lot of, that paperwork. It was a big corporation. So I thought that I was going to start this business. And so I asked a couple of people. My mom's a big prayer warrior for me and a friend of mine. And I was like, I think I'm supposed to start a business. And so they were praying, and I set up my LLC, and I was ready to go. And they both came back and they were like, no, we both heard no.
Really?
And I was like, really? Because now what am I going to do? I really thought it was a yes. But I've learned well enough not only to listen to myself, but to listen to what God says to other people for me. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to do it. I don't know when this is going to happen. I still feel like it's something, but I kind of put it aside. And then COVID hit. And so started to, stay home more as of March. And I had been on the road for over 50% of the time for 15 years. And I thought I loved it. And I was home for a couple months, and I started to dig some roots here, and God really started rooting me where I live, and getting me involved in my church and the community group. And I was making friends here. I didn't really have a lot. I'd only lived here for 3 years, and I was traveling all the time. So, they weren't deep relationships. And one day I was just like, well, I'm going to have to travel again once COVID lifts up. I don't want to do that. What does that look like? And around that time, a person that I had talked to in the past about helping them in, my new business idea, called and was like, hey, you know what? I know you're not going to start a business, but we need help. Can you still help us? And I had talked to my company, and they said I could do it, it as long as it didn't compete. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, yeah, I can help you, just tell me what you need. So they told me, and I, did this proposal, and I prayed about the proposal. And honestly, Chuck, I thought they were going to come back and say, we want you to do this one thing, and then maybe one thing in 6 months and one thing in 6 months. So I was just going to do it, in the evenings, make a little extra money. And they came back and they said, we want you to do it all. And I said, I think that means I'm starting a business. So I'm going to have to pray about this. And by this time I had a network here. So and my Pinnacle network. So I had everybody praying about it. And everyone was like, yes, 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 yes. Now's the time. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, it's going to happen. We're going to start this business. So it's been crazy. And God has just really done amazing things. He's blessed the business. I was telling someone the other day, if he would have shown me what it looks like even today, not what it's going to look like in the future, I would have said no.
It would have scared you to death.
I thought,
It would have scared you to death.
It would have scared me to death. Yeah. Honestly, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do some consulting. I'm going to have 1 or 2 customers, and then I'm going to kind of ride off into retirement. And now my friends are like, you're building an empire. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know about that. Like, let's not get crazy. But I have 4 people that work with me now, and I'm bringing on a 5th person in October. And we have become the consulting company in our industry for what we do. And so it's, again, if you would have asked me to map this out or asked me to create this business, I couldn't have done it. So I just rely heavily on God and prayer and just keeping open hands. He can take it. He can take it away from me. He can give it to me. I'm just going to say yes to either. So I'm just watching it unfold.
You feel like this is the work that God created for you to do? I
do.
That God knew you were going to be doing this before you knew it.
Right? Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I was just telling someone the other day that, like, I really, at some point, God taught me to think about what really brought me to life and what I was really passionate about, what I really love to do. And I remember before I started this company, I would call my mom after a presentation. I'd be like, I was made for this. God made me for this. I feel so good at, those things. Mm-hmm. And so I really was like, well, what did he make me to do? And how can I do more of that? Because that's what I want to do, right? Mm-hmm. I want to get done every day and be like, wow, this is what he made me to do. He gave me these gifts so that I could do this today. He gave me these gifts so I can do this tomorrow. And if I live that way, what an amazing life I have.
Then instead of going home happy that it's Friday night, you go home depressed because now I can't work again till Monday. No more business meetings.
I wish I couldn't work again until Monday, but yes. Yes.
So what type of consulting is it that you're doing?
Yeah, so it's really, really niche. So it's for the commercial furniture industry only at this point. I always say at this point because God has this dream and who knows where it will go. And we help small businesses grow their sales through selling to public sector. So we help them create programs to sell to the federal government, to state and local government through cooperative purchasing.
Because that's where all the money is.
Where all the money is, especially right now.
Yeah, that's the only people that have the money to buy anything.
And they're spending and they're spending.
And if they need some more, they'll just print some.
Right. I always tell people, like, I have to take off my taxpayer hat when I have this conversation and put on my furniture hat, because my furniture hat is really happy to say that. My taxpayer hat is like, how did you increase your spending during COVID when nobody was in the office? Who were you buying furniture for?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Or building a new building that nobody would ever come to. Yeah. So do you work from home?
I do. I have worked from home for most of my career.
Okay. So all your employees, they're all working from home?
Yep, they're all remote, and they're all subcontractors, so they're not employees. So they're all subcontractors, and they all work from home.
And they're all loving it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a part of your influence right there. You're providing jobs for people who get to be under the influence of a dynamic Christian leader and stay at home to do it.
Right. And I had never thought about that, right? Like, it was always I was going to build this business. And then through Pinnacle and just some stuff that we've done and talked about in our group and read, I'm like, I am providing business opportunities for these, because they're independent contractors. So they're starting their own companies, but then they're working for me. So now they've got their own companies in place, but I'm their main provider, right? So yeah, it's been eye-opening to watch that.
And the things that you can say now, since you own the company, that maybe you were hesitant to say, even to a client, about 100%. Who you are and your faith, that you can say because it's your company, and nobody in the HR department is going to come down and say, you said what?
Yes. I've always, it's odd. I think I said on a call, it was a Pinnacle call, I think, in one of the business forums, I think I said I wasn't allowed. And someone was like, what do you mean you wasn't allowed? I was like, I don't know. I always perceived that I wasn't allowed to talk about my faith. So it was always very personal. It wasn't, well known. Whereas now I've had, some coaching opportunities with a lovely woman, actually, you interviewed, Diana Furr. Mm-hmm. And, part of what she coached me on was, how do you talk about your faith with new people that don't know you? And one of the things she said for me to say, which I love, is, I don't know what part faith plays in your life, but this is what it plays in mine. And that has opened up conversations and doors, and has made me so much bolder from everything, like our social media posts. I used to be like, hey, let's do a card and say we're blessed. And my friend would be like, well, why don't we mention Christ? And I'm like, okay.
We're going to go there.
Sure, let's try that. I'm like, well, okay, let's do it. What do I have to lose, right? What do I have to lose? It's my business, and I'm a Christian, and I'm trying to be a kingdom entrepreneur and learn what that means. And so how can I be a kingdom entrepreneur and not talk about God and Christ in my life, and not offer to pray for people and do all those things that we should be doing?
But you might alienate a customer.
I might. And I've had this conversation numerous times. One of my favorite stories was a Thanksgiving card that we did. And again, I said to my marketing person, hey, let's say, we're grateful and we're blessed to have you as a customer.
Some Christian buzzwords.
And so she came back with some options, and I have actually the card here. So the first card that was in the options on the front said Thanksgiving blessings. And I was like, there's my word. That's fantastic. And I opened it and it said, wishing you a simple Thanksgiving filled with Christ's blessings, the beauty of nature, and enjoyed by those you hold most dear. May God be with you at Thanksgiving and always. And I read it, and my heart started pounding, and I was like, oh, I know that's the card, but let's see what my other options are, right? Like, I was just like, oh, she's going to stretch me. And I read the other ones, and I went back and I emailed her, and I was like, this is the card. And before I change my mind, make sure you put the company logo on it, because I don't want them to think it's from Michelle the Christian. I want them to think it's from Catalyst, the Kingdom Entrepreneur Company. And then I said, send it before I change my mind. And I said exactly what you said, Chuck. I said to her out loud, I said, worst case scenario, we lose a customer or two. But I believe that God will give me customers and God will take them away. So if I truly believe what I say, I have to be okay with doing that.
Well, if God ordained the business, which you have said he did, and told you when to start it, then how foolish would it be to think that you're responsible for the customer makeup of his business?
100%.
Yeah. versus having faith that if you're doing what he's asked you to do, and that is using your influence for the kingdom, the influence that he's given you in your own business, using that influence in faith, and in faith that if you lose a customer, God knows, he knows. And
he knew before I got the customer, how long they were going to be my customer.
He knew before you started the company.
Yep.
He knew before you were born.
Yep.
That always blows
my mind. And one of the things, Chuck, that I get asked every now and then, and it's a great conversation starter. So I don't know where I learned this, like a lot of stuff. I'm like, I must have heard this somewhere. I thought it was a great idea. So when I started the company, I made myself the president. And so sometimes I get asked, like, why are you the president and founder? Why aren't you the CEO? And I'm like, well, God's the CEO. We can't have two. So I'm the president and founder. And so like, I'll have meetings where I'm like, okay, God, you're the CEO. What are you doing? Like, can you give me some insight? What is my next step? What am I supposed to do? Because as the CEO, that's what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And then as the president, I'm going to follow and lead the team in the direction that you tell me.
That's brilliant. I like that a lot. Well, Michelle, what has Pinnacle Forum? You've mentioned Pinnacle Forum several times. What has Pinnacle Forum done to help you in your business career?
Yeah, it's amazing to me because when I first heard about Pinnacle, and I'm the type of person you'll probably learn through another story I told before, when someone gives me says something to me, if I automatically am like, yeah, not interested, I know it's the Holy Spirit. Like that's my Holy Spirit reaction, that and tears. So when he's here, I'm in tears. When someone says something, my first flesh reaction is like, I don't need to read that book. I don't need to join that group. And so a woman that used to be part of Pinnacle Forum that I met at Convoy Hope Summit had said to me, hey, you're starting your new business. There's this group I think you would be interested in. You should try it out. I remember looking at my mom, I think rolling my eyes. And like a couple months later, I reached out to her and I was like, hey, can you send me the information on that forum? Because I think it would be really helpful for me to be surrounded by women entrepreneurs that are doing what I'm doing, chasing after God, building a business. I think this would really be good for me. And so I joined a group. I've been in the same group for 2 years now, I think almost 2 years. And it's just, it's just really great to be around like-minded women there's so much encouraging. So many times I want to hit the record button because they're so encouraging. Like when we do the CIPs, I'm like, can we record this? Because I just need to play this when I'm feeling down about myself or I don't think I'm following what I'm supposed to do. Like the encouragement from the women on the call, it's just life-giving, right? And so they encourage me, they pray for me, they listen to, what we have to say. We don't always agree on stuff, but it's become a great friendship. And we've never met as a group in person, right? Because when I started, it was Zoom and we're all over the United States. And so when I travel with work, which I don't do as much anymore, I'm like, hey, I'm coming to Missouri. Can I meet you in person? Hey, I'm coming to Atlanta. Who wants to meet me? So I'm really trying to make an effort. And that just adds a level to it. I actually said to our leader the other day, I was like, hey, maybe next year we could plan something where we could all get together. Because I feel like I know them all so very well, but I've never had a chance to hug them or spend physical time with them. And I think that would just take it, up a notch in our relationship. But yeah, there's just so much encouragement, so much direction. We've had people who have built great businesses and sold them and they're moving on to their next stage. We have women that are starting their first business. And so, I feel like I get the opportunity to help and share my wisdom and what God is sharing with me for them. And I get to get that back in return. So it's amazing.
And it's actually pretty cheap for what you get, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm like, that's not even a tick on my expense sheets. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh,
definitely worth it.
So you're saying we should raise the price?
That is not what I was saying, Chuck.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put words in your mouth.
I think it's a great value. How's that?
Yes. So, Michelle, have you thought much about bringing other peers that that might be encouraged by being in a forum? Have you thought about inviting them and passing it forward?
I talk about Pinnacle often, and what it is. And I actually invited someone we had just met, another Pinnacle partner, and I had gone to a conference and we met a woman there. And so we invited and she joined. And so, I'm always talking about it and what it is and what it does. And so it's part of my story now, right? Is this group of women. And, I treat our Thursday morning like any other appointment. I'm sad when I miss it. Mm-hmm. So, I had people staying at my house the other day. And I think, when you talk about influence, I had my sister-in-law was here, my brother was here, my great niece and a friend of hers, and we were having Pinnacle Forum and I wasn't missing it. I was sitting in here, they were praying and they were in that room. So if that doesn't have some sort of influence or impact on them, I would be shocked, right? And that's what I want them to see. I want them to see that my business is not just about the business, right? It's about God moving in the business and the ways that I'm engaging to make sure that's a part of it, right?
You mentioned about the great friends that you have that you've never met. I hear that all the time from people who say, I feel like the best friends that I have in the whole world are the people that are in my forum. And by and large, I've never met them. That is so strange that you can actually build deep relationships with people over a video, because most everything that happens on video is not very deep. You think all those Facebook friends that you have are dear friends. And the fact of the matter is, now I've got 15,000 contacts on LinkedIn. If I start looking through them, most of them, I don't have a clue who they are. They've just hit a link at some point, liked something we said or something, or responded to a letter that we ghost writ to them. And here they are, friends. But you can make deep relationships with people that you've never met, can't you?
Yes. Well, and I think that especially in Pinnacle Forum, right, I think the difference is that you go deep fast because you meet once a week, you have a set time. And like, if I were to meet them for coffee, I'd be like, so what you been up to? What's the weather? You going to the beach, whatever. But we go deep fast. Like we start in prayer and we go right into something. And sometimes the books, I'm like, we get the topic and I read about it and like, oh, we're going to have discussion. Like they're going to learn a lot about what I think and what God is doing in my life on this topic just because of the book we've chosen, right? And so it's not, and Candace doesn't let us just like hang out, high level. It is, let's go deep. What is the topic? How, what is your heart telling you? How do you need to grow? What is God telling you about this? So when you go deep fast, you build bonds faster than, hey, I'm just meeting someone for coffee once a month.
Yeah. So what are you studying right now?
We are about to start the Hannah anointing. Actually, tomorrow we start the study on that. So I started reading it. So
what do you know about it? I mean,
I obviously know the story of Hannah in the Bible, the mother of Samuel, and how she was barren and was going to the temple every year. So there was actually, I was laughing the other night because there's prayers in the book. And so I started reading the one prayer. So I'm 51. I'm not going to have children. I don't have any children. I have nothing against them. It's just not what God had for me. But the one prayer, so I like, if there's a prayer in the book and I think I'm supposed to read it out loud. So I started to read it and it was about having children. And I was like, nope, not going to finish that prayer. I do not want to find out I'm with child. Like, it's not going to happen. So, so I'm excited to see, I've always been intrigued by the story and Hannah's faith and just how God moved in her and then, gave this amazing prophet through her. So I think it'll be
all her life wanted a child.
Yep.
No child. And finally she has one and she gives him to God.
Gives it back to God. Yeah.
What an amazing story of faith.
Yes.
Well, Michelle, I am so glad that you're a part of Pinnacle Forum because you're exactly the type of person we're looking for. Somebody that needs a community, somebody that needs people to hold them up, to share in their good days and their bad days, to cry with them when it's needed, and to praise with them when it's needed. One of the things that I'm finding out about Pinnacle Forum is it provides a great place where you can share your successes. Yes. There's not a lot of places where you can share all the great things, when you just closed a big deal. And by and large, people don't care.
Well, sometimes I get on the call and I can't wait till it's time to share, and I have to tell them the good. Like, I'm like, I had a praise report before we pray. Let me tell you, like, I like to get on early so I can throw, because I'm bursting, like, to tell these women like what God has done with something that we've been talking about or something we've been praying about, right?
And where else would you share that?
My mom.
And even then, there's probably aspects of your business and your life that mom's going to go, well, that's real good, Michelle. I'm real proud of you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She'll tell you. She's like, someone asked what you do. I told them, I have no idea. You run a business. Ask you. I'm like, okay, fantastic. I'm not looking for customers through you. So that's great. You don't need to know. There's the elevator pitch, right?
Coming into this, you probably said, I hope he asks, or I'm afraid he's going to ask. What were those?
There was nothing that I was afraid you were going to ask. I'm pretty much an open book at this point. I wasn't before in my life, but the one thing, God is continually stretching me, and he's given me this vision, and I honestly don't know what it looks like. I just said yes. And so I have a new, I don't know if it's going to be part of a business, if it's going to be a nonprofit, but it's called Faith-Filled Women. And he gave me some downloads on what it was going to be. I thought it was going to be just for furniture women, because that was my heart. But everyone in the forum and everyone that I mentioned it to was like, no, I want to be a part of it. And the exciting thing is that he gave me the logo in a dream. And so I woke up one morning and I called my marketing friend and I said, okay, I need a logo. And this is what I remember. I said, it's FFW, Faith-Filled Women. And the W looks like Wonder Woman. And there's fire. I'm like, it's a W looks like Wonder Woman and there's fire. And so we went live with the website. Again, like, all my friends are like, well, what is this? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going live with the website because God gave me the logo.
Wait a minute. You've got a website for a ministry and you don't know what they're going to do.
No.
You'll figure it out when the time comes. What's the website? What's the website?
We couldn't get Faith-Filled Women. So we got Faith-Filled Woman, WOMAN.com. And you'll see the logo. I think it looks like Wonder Woman with flames, but not too much like Wonder Woman to, have a problem there.
Yeah. No
copyright infringement. Exactly. And so we're kind of figuring it out. I had a conversation with a woman that I thought was going to be working with me in my business. I was going to have her company sell some of the products of ours. And she asked about my story. And I said, well, I don't know what part faith plays in your life. And she's like, stop right there. It plays a big part. I am all about doing stuff for the kingdom. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I was like, well, then let me tell you the story. So I told her the whole God story of Catalyst. And then I told her about this idea for Faith-Filled Women. And she goes, you know what? She goes, she's like, I have goosebumps. I feel like the Spirit is telling me that I'm supposed to be a part of this with you. And he has been clearing off my plate for the past couple months and I couldn't figure out why. So I am in. And I'm like, I don't even know what we're doing, but she's in. So I was like, well, I've got a logo, I've got a person, and God's going to do something with it.
God, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah. God, what are we going to, that's what we asked. That's what we're praying. What are we going to do with it? What does it look like? And what other people should I ask to be a part of it? That's where we left our last call was, okay, we're both going to go pray.
And your forum knows about it.
Yep. Yeah. I just did my CIP. And so I focused on that.
Okay. So if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know what a CIP is, that's because you're not in a forum. And you really ought to be, because from what Michelle has said, I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to be in a forum, except, well, let's see, there's probably a couple of reasons. Laziness would be one. Not listening to the Holy Spirit might be one. But otherwise, why would you not want to be in a group of peers that you can speak to about the horrible things that are happening in your life and the fantastic things that are happening in your life? And they understand because they're peers. I can't understand why anybody wouldn't want to be a part of a forum, specifically a Pinnacle forum, like Michelle and I are, and have gleaned years and years of wisdom and experience from the people that we're exposed to, and so many best friends, curiously enough, some that we've never even met, and yet we count them as our best friends. So if you're interested,
one of the things, Chuck, I'm sorry to interrupt you here because I know you're making your pitch on the forum, but I'm going to help you out here. So I think one of the benefits of the forum is that they are not women just like me. They are, and I think that's so important. I teach a ministry placement class at church, and we talk about mission myopia and how we're all just ingrained that we're going to draw the people that are just like us, whether it's the same views, they look like us, they act like us, they're doing what we're doing. But these women are so different. Like, we're all so different. I love them all dearly. And they all bring different perspectives based on their background and their race. And so there is no other group that I'm a part of. Like, most of my groups are like, oh, these are my furniture friends. Oh, these are my church friends. We're all alike because we're all in furniture. We're all alike because we're all go to the same church and we're in the same community group. This group, I didn't pick it. God picked the women in it and put me in it for them as well. And so just the diversity of that and the ideas and the affirmation that you get from that is amazing.
It is. And there are people who are under the misconception that we're all business people. We're not. We've got business people. We've got ministry people. We've got educators. We've got government employees and elected officials. We've got some pastor types. We've got, and somehow mixing those in a forum gets you out of your silo, out of your furniture women group and into a group that's got experiences that you'll never have and wisdom that you'll never have with a group of peers in your same industry. So we don't do that. We started mixing them up years ago, and I think it's part of the secret sauce of Pinnacle Forum. Well, Michelle, you are an inspiration to me. I love hearing stories where Pinnacle Forum has shaped people's lives. Obviously, it's been a big part of your life just in these last couple of years. And so you have encouraged me. I'm sure you will encourage our listeners by hearing your story. And I want to thank you for being my guest today. And so here's my signing off. So from all of us to all of you listening out there somewhere, thank you for listening. We trust that these stories are an encouragement to you as you steward the influence that God has given you, the way that Michelle and the people in her forum are stewarding the influence that God has given them. Thank you for listening.